Hi there, it's Nicole from Lawn Fawn, and today I'm sharing a Stitched Cupcakes die-cut background card. One of my favorite things to do is to take dies and create completely custom die-cut backgrounds with them. I love the new Stitched Cupcakes from Lawn Fawn, and I even paired the cherry and stem from the previously released I Scream You Scream for an additional cupcake topper option. The background of my card is going to be created with the Lawn Fawn Itsy Bitsy Polka Dot backdrop. I wanted to have a little bit of interest to the background of the card, and backdrop dies make a perfect way to add some decorative touch without overwhelming the die cut design. I went ahead and die cut the images off camera to save time today. We're going to use some ink blending tools to add a little bit of shading to all of our die cut pieces, doing a tone-on-tone look. Some of the cupcake wrappers and cupcake tops were die cut from Ballet Slippers cardstock. I'm going to take the Ballet Slippers ink and a small life-changing ink blending brush and add a little bit of color along the edges of the die cuts. This will just deepen and darken some of the edges. I've tried to keep all of the colors pretty soft and pastel, with the exception of the reds for the strawberries and cherries. We'll also be adding glitter to to the cupcake tops in some of the areas for a little bit of a sugared cupcake kind of look. I love the Lawn Fawn Prisma glitter for adding that glittery touch to these pieces. Let's move on to the next color that we're going to add ink to, and that is the yellow. For the yellow pieces, I'm going to use the Lawn Fawn Sunflower ink and apply that to the edges. Remember that anything you apply is going to absorb into the cardstock here, and it will mute or lighten a little bit as that ink is absorbed. These are dye inks, so they do absorb into the paper you stamp them on a little bit and lighten as they dry. The apricot cardstock is one of my favorite newer colors from Lawn Fawn. I love this addition to the Lawn Fawn cardstock color family. I am a huge fan of all of the Lawn Fawn cardstock. It is beautiful, and it comes in a huge array of colors, specialty cardstock like glitter cardstock, and even some wood grain, vellum, and acetate. There is something for everything that you want to create. I'm applying that apricot ink to the edges of the apricot cupcake wrappers. For the chocolate tops of the cupcakes, I'm going to take some walnut ink and apply that along the edges. The cardstock I used is called Chocolate Bar. This cardstock does have a textured side to it. If you want it to not have texture, much like the rest of the cardstock that we're using, I like to flip it over and use the back side of the cardstock. It hardly has any texture at all, and it's going to look much more flat like the rest of the Lawn Fawn cardstock collection. For the strawberries, I've die cut these from raspberry cardstock, and I'm going to apply raspberry ink to darken up the bottom edge of these strawberry pieces. The layering piece for the strawberries was created from Lawn Fawn black licorice cardstock. So you'll layer the die cut strawberry panel over the black strawberry, so that it gives the illusion of these little black seeds. In addition to that, there is the little green stem topper for the top of each. I love that the attention to detail and all of the little pieces layer together to create these fun little fruit embellishments. I'm using a small life-changing ink blending brush for the small die cuts. It gives you much more control when applying this ink. For the strawberries, these were die cut from chili pepper cardstock, and chili pepper ink was used to deepen and darken some of the areas on these cherries. The cherry itself is from the Ice Cream U-Scream die cut collection. This is the ice cream collection from Lawn Fawn, and it works perfectly with the cupcakes. I think it would be really fun to create a card with cupcakes and ice cream images. You could even take the strawberries and use those with the ice cream if you wanted to. In the Stitched Cupcake die collection, there are also faces, so if you want to add faces to your die cut shapes, you could totally do that. And there's also a birthday hat and a candle. So lots and lots of options for creating all kinds of fun birthday and celebration type of cards. The stems for both the cherries and the strawberries were die cut from Lawn Fawn cilantro cardstock and inked with cilantro ink. Again, I'm using a small life-changing blender brush to control the ink just a little bit better. There are lots and lots of these little green pieces since I used so many strawberries and cherries on the design. I even went back later after I adhere all of these pieces to my card, which you will see here in a little bit, and I die cut a couple of additional ones to adhere around the edges of the Itsy Bitsy polka dot backdrop. Once we have our inking done, we can move all of these little pieces over to the side, and we do want to ink the background. I wanted to darken the edges of the Itsy Bitsy polka dot background with mermaid ink. I'm going to use a much bigger life-changing brush to add that ink around the edges. I'm not going to go crazy here. I'm just going to darken the edges with the ink, and then we'll start layering on all these fun cupcakes to create this background pattern. I'm going to take the Lawn Fawn glue tube, apply the glue to the back of this panel, and then glue it in place on a white top fold card base. The white is going to show through all those little polka dot die cut pieces to give the nice contrast and interest to our background. I'll put something heavy on it like some acrylic blocks to hold that down while the liquid glue dries. Then I'm going to start assembling my cupcakes. I have sped up the video since the assembly of the cupcakes does take a little bit of time. You can use 1 or 2 or even more layers of frosting for the cupcakes. This first one is going to have 2, and you can see that the frosting top has those little die cut slits in it, so you can tuck in strawberries, candles, hearts, cherries, whatever you want to add to these little cupcakes. I'm also going to take a coffee filter, add some liquid glue, and then sprinkle on the Prisma glitter to give it that sugared effect. I'm going to tuck the strawberry in, and then I'm going to glue this in place. My tweezers came in so handy here to hold all of the elements together while the liquid glue dries, and also to place everything exactly where I want it to go on the background. I purposely tipped the cupcakes this way and that. I didn't want it to appear to be too straight or perfect. One of the things I love about the Stitched Cupcake set is there is a little die that comes in it. It's a little kind of curved shaped die that you can create your own little die cut pocket or little slit to create a place to tuck in the fruit or candles or anything else that you'd like to add to the top of your cupcakes. But you don't have to use it if you don't want to. I love that there's that option in case you want to customize the cupcake with maybe only one layer and only use the more rounded top. I'm going to lay out the rest of my images to make sure that I'm leaving enough room and adding everything I want. My sentiment's going to go kind of right above the midline of this card panel, and it will be a die cut strip with some stamped sentiments. That's going to be the only stamping on this card, is the little sentiment strip. Once I have a pretty good idea of where everything's going to go, I can finish assembling and gluing it all in place. Some of the images purposely hang off the edge of the card and those pieces are not going to go to waste. I tried to use every little bit and piece as long as it wasn't too teeny tiny. So anything that has a much bigger edge to it, like this yellow cupcake along the bottom edge of the card, I'm going to have quite a bit of that left, and I can use that to fill in edges of the card elsewhere. Same goes for any of the fruit die cuts. If it hangs off the edge and I'm able to save it, I'm going to adhere it along the edge of the card somewhere on this background design. That way you don't actually have to die cut and assemble additional pieces. You can just kind of reuse what you've already got. This little heart is also from the Stitched Cupcake die collection, and it's been die cut from raspberry cardstock and then adhered to each of the cupcake wrappers. I love that little pop of color on the cupcake wrappers and the heart design. Here's that little rounded, or curved, I guess I should say, curved edge die that I used to die cut a little slit in the top of this cupcake. We'll tuck a little cherry in the top of this one. These are just so much fun to make. I think they are absolutely adorable. Once I have most of the images in place, I am then going to take some nice long scissors and trim off anything hanging off the edge. These are those little pieces that I want to save or hold on to in case they can work in other places along the edges of the card. So there's definitely some little holes that can be filled. I'm not going to worry about the one kind of in the middle there, as that's where my sentiment's going to go over the top, so anything we adhere there is going to get lost. But I did take the rest of the strawberry from the upper right corner of the card and I placed that along the bottom left corner of the card, and we're also going to add the rest of this cupcake wrapper. It was at about this time that I decided I needed an additional cherry and strawberry, so I will be adding those here in a little bit off camera. I'm going to take a white pen now and add some highlight detail to my cherries, just drawing in that little highlight along the left side of each. I'm going to take some glossy accents and apply it to the hearts on all of the cupcake wrappers to make them shiny. This should dry pretty quickly and it adds a really fun decorative touch to the finished card. I noticed I missed trimming off something in one little area, so I went ahead and did that really quick as well. And there is my background. Now it's time to add the stamped sentiment. I've got a piece of smooth white cardstock here, and I'm going to take the sentiment Happy Birthday and the phrase Have Your Cake and Eat It Too from the new Lawn Fawn Birthday Before and Afters stamp set. We're going to stamp the Happy Birthday sentiment with Lawn Fawn Mermaid ink, and then we'll take the Lawn Fawn Cilantro ink and stamp the additional phrase below it for a two-toned sentiment. Because there's so much going on in the background of the card, I purposely wanted to keep my sentiment fairly simple and not take away from all of those awesome cupcakes that we have paper pieced together. I will then take the Simon's or a Simon Says stamp, nested banners die, and I'm going to die cut my sentiment into a little banner shape. I'll put some foam adhesive on the back of this strip and pop it right over my card to finish up the design. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this Stitched Cupcake die cut background card featuring Lawn Fawn stamps and dies. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel to never miss a card making or paper crafting video. Here are a couple more videos featuring Lawn Fawn stamps and dies that you might be interested in. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.